Hi and welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a painting inspired by this beautiful photograph that I found on Pixabay. The link will be in the description below. This is a painting that I'm doing as a request from a few of my patrons on Patreon. They wanted to see how to paint sort of tropical palm trees, and it's something I've never done before, so I thought I'd give it a go. It's a beautiful evening sunset scene with sort of tropical headland and a beach cafe with lovely subtle sort of umbrellas, a few people, but the stars of the show are these beautiful palm trees. So my first job is to simplify the photograph, and here you can see my pencil sketch, which has done just that. And if you look closely, you can see that I have used masking fluid and painted it over the umbrellas, 3 of them, and a few windows in the cafe. And that will preserve the white when I do this all over wash. I'm only going to be using 2 colours for this painting, vermilion, which you see here, and indigo, which will give me my sky colour. So I've swept my vermilion across the middle of a wet page. So I pre-wetted the page all over with my large Pro Art Ranson Hake brush, and then applied the indigo. You can see it's going over the masking fluid, which is resisting the paint. And then I've applied my indigo over the top, across the top of the page and across the bottom of the page. And I'm using horizontal sweeps of my Hake brushes, a smaller one for the indigo, so that I keep one brush for indigo and the other brush for vermilion, so that I don't get my colours too muddy. I can keep them fairly separate whilst working to soften the washes to get some beautiful soft transitions between the colours and end up with a lovely graduated wash that goes from indigo to vermilion and then indigo again across the bottom. I'm using Saunders Waterford cold press paper, 140 weight, and it's taped to my board, and my board's at an angle of about 45 degrees, and that helps the wet paint, painted wet in wet, to diffuse and drift gently down the page and soften, so that if I'm quick, I should be able to get in some lovely soft transitions, and then as soon as it looks the way I want it to, I'll lay it flat and let it dry. Now here's the dry painting, and it's a little bit darker than this. As always, the sun by now is streaming into my windows, which is lovely, but it's bleaching out the colours a little bit here. So now it's dry, I want to paint in more of the details over the top of this base wash. So I've mixed up indigo and vermilion together until I've got this nice sort of dark neutral aubergine dark, and using my 3/4 inch flat brush I shall just sweep it along horizontally to create that sort of headland and the sort of the wall leading that sections the cafe off from the little bit of beach and the cafe itself. So that's what I'm painting in now. A slow, steady hand can create a nice straight line. So take your time with this, and I find that if you move your whole arm from the shoulder and turning your body as you draw that line, it's straighter than if you try to draw a straight line moving your wrist. So I'm putting in a little bit of slightly darker paint into the wet wash below where my umbrellas will be, and that will just give me a little bit of shadow that the against the wall that those canopies will give. And then using the same mixture, I'm painting in my cafe building shapes, just following the lines that I penciled in earlier. And you can see where I've painted the masking fluid in that my windows and the lights on inside are being revealed already. which I think looks really pretty. I want to create a really peaceful, serene atmosphere for this painting with no ruffle on the water at all in front of the beach cafe. So all I'm going to do is put in the smallest amount of reflection with that same dark colour mixed out of the vermilion and the indigo, and just the tips of my flat brush and some horizontal brush strokes, just bringing that down slightly where the buildings are. And next, I'm going to paint my palm trees. Now I penciled those in roughly as you saw at the beginning, and if you want to copy that you can freeze frame the drawing right back at the beginning. And now I'm going over my palm trees using my small calligraphy brush, or you can use a small round brush. I think any brush that holds enough paint and has a good point will do the job here. So you want sort of a fairly thick sweep of paint for your each separate palm frond, keeping it fairly flat across the top, and then bringing down those shaggy, ragged shapes of the palm fronds and palm leaves, sort of bending down towards the bottom, forming these little canopies. In the photograph, if you look at it, most of the palm trees are sort of slightly leaning towards the left, and most of the palm fronds lean that way too. So I'm assuming that's where the strongest amount of sun is for the maximum length of time and main direction of the wind. So I would have thought that the palm trees would sort of grow in that direction towards the light. So I'm trying to copy that sort of orientation with my directional brushwork. So I'm just using this same dark mixture to rough in this silhouette of the palm tree. Again, it's a fairly rich but inky consistency mix of vermilion and indigo. And it's giving me this lovely dark that's subtler than using Payne's grey or black, because it's the same colours that I use for the sky and the water. And so this keeps the colour harmony going, keeps things really looking good together. I think using too many different colours in a painting can often make it look a bit sort of jarring to the eye. So you can see that I'm now moving on to my second palm tree, trying to sort of overlap the branches a little bit, but still painting them in exactly the same way, roughly following my pencil sketch and making sure that I've got those nice curves coming out from that central part of the tree. The branches seem to radiate out. Again, with then these sort of very, very shaggy edges to the palm fronds. I'm taking my time as well with this, stopping and stepping back and looking and then carrying on. I'm painting with wet paint onto a dry painting, so there's no rush. I don't have any issues of timing of the paper as you do when you're painting wet in wet. And now for these slender trunks. So I'm keeping that nice and straight but with a slight lean, and I can paint right over the umbrella canopy because it's masked out with masking fluid. And so then work across your painting and paint in your other palm trees all in exactly the same way. I've left one out, the one behind the main cafe, the slightly lower one, but I shall do that a bit later once I've finished or got most of the cafe in. Now this is a slightly richer mixture of the dark, and I'm painting in some steps leading down from the cafe to the waterfront. And that's again using the flat brush and letting the brush tip create the mark without me really interfering too much, just pressing the brush tip onto the page and then sweeping some dark along right at the water's edge. Just layering up with another glaze of this dark colour, and every layer of dark makes it slightly richer and deeper. Now these are the umbrella poles, so I'm coming down from the point of the triangle at the top and bringing it just down to the wall of the cafe. And you can see that we're starting to bring this painting together. I think it's starting to look really nice. And then just a few marks and dots and lines and things over on the far left in the distance, something in nothing. It could be maybe some boats moored up with their masts, or it could be some telegraph poles, something in nothing really, just to sort of finish off that area there. I'm just going to indicate a minimal amount of reflection from the palm trees in the water, just using a few little dashes of this darker colour but quite pale, because as I said before, I want the water to be almost completely smooth and just a slight indication below each trunk to indicate that reflection. Now I'm sure it's completely dry, so with a clean dry finger, I'm rubbing off the masking fluid from the masked areas, or you could use the gluey bit, the tacky bit of a piece of masking tape, or you could use an eraser to rub away that. And then with a clean dry brush, brush off any crumbs of latex that have come up from the masking fluid. Now let's finish this painting and blend those masked areas in a little bit more. But first I want to use my flat brush and just put in a little bit of dark across the top of the cafe to keep that line nice and flat across the roof, and then using my small calligraphy brush to bring up this smaller palm tree behind the cafe. So using the flat brush first can give you a nice straight edge so that you don't go into the cafe. But if you can do that with your calligraphy brush or your round brush, then use that. Don't worry about the flat brush for that mark. But beginners might find it easier to create that little flat mark to start with, then bring the tree up, the tree fronds up from that dark area. And you can see now this just throws the cafe and the umbrellas forward a lot more, as does the dark at the water's edge. And still sticking with this mixture of vermilion and indigo, nice dark rich mixture, I'm going underneath, running some shadow underneath the umbrellas, just a thin line, and then using the tip to create some really thin lines running from the top point down to just show the sectional shape of the umbrellas or parasols, the sunshades I suppose they are really. And I'm going to put a little bit of dark across my windows or around the windows here and there, just to soften them back and just to add a little bit more form to those masked areas. If you wanted to, you could probably paint your window lights in yellow, but I'm just going to leave these, and you could also paint in your sunshades too, but I'm going to leave them with the white of the paper, just maybe a little bit of shadow over them in a bit, because I think it's nice just to keep this really simple. So one of the finishing touches is to add a few people. Just make sure you try and get them in proportion. So you just want the upper bodies, which is all you can see behind that wall, and just the little dot for the head below the parasol. Put as many or as few as you like in. I'm just going to put a couple in, and then I'm going to put a few figures standing against the light of this larger window, because I think it's a nice place to actually show off these silhouetted figures against the light. It's like they're just going into the cafe. Now this is my white gouache, and I'm just going to use this to finish off the painting by adding just a few tiny reflections with the tips of my flat brush and the calligraphy brush according to the type of brush mark I want, just below where the parasols are and where the lights in the window are. So I've got a little bit of reflection showing there. And of course, if you paint your parasols or the lights in your cafe windows a different colour, that's the colour that you'd want to put into the water to reflect. So just a few little traces quite close to the water's edge. And so that's finished. I'm going to peel off the masking tape and see how it looks with its clean white border. And if you've sort of watched my videos before, you'll know that I like to remove the border, and then it gives me kind of a different look. It's as if I'm looking at the painting through fresh eyes, and I can see whether it needs anything else doing to it. And I think in general, I'm quite happy with this. I think it's worked out well for my first proper try at painting palm trees. I think I just need to use my aubergine colour, but thinned down so it's quite watery, to paint in some shadows on this side of my parasols, leaving the others plain white. But this just adds a little bit more shape and form to them, and I think that's just really all it needs. Just sort of soften back, bring that shadow across a little bit more, maybe slightly darker right on the right edge, just brought forward a little bit more. And I'm calling that done. Well, I hope you found that useful. I hope you'll try similar scenes yourself. And let me know how you get on in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching, and please give us a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and if you click on the bell icon you'll be notified whenever I publish another video. And thank you so much to my lovely Patreon group who support this channel, and I'll see you again soon, and happy painting. Bye.